Okay, so we're going to be creating our pretty microblading or nanobrow pattern, and we're going to be doing what I kind of like to call a straight pattern, in that all of our strokes are going to be more straight. We're not going to have any real curved or S ones in there. This is really great for beginners. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do all of our mapping, so we have a beautiful, perfect eyebrow. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add in what most people call a spine. However, I don't like to call it a spine. I like to call it a highway, because I don't want you to be thinking like it's like a fish spine. I want you to be thinking of it more like a highway. I want you to be all of your other strokes to kind of merge onto this highway. And so that's what I kind of like to think of it more as. What I find a lot of students kind of like the beginner instinct is to kind of make all of our strokes like crash land into this. And we do not want to be thinking of this as a fish spine. Instead, we want to be thinking of this as a highway where all of our strokes are going to merge onto the highway. That's what we're looking more for. Okay, so we have now our basic mapping and then our highway that we have here. And we are going to do this in the exact order that I normally work on a client. So when I first work on my client, I usually sit on their right side. So I'm going to be sitting on the right side of my client. And the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to work on her left eyebrow. And typically with our mapping, about right here is where our arch line is going to be on both sides. And so that's where I'm going to start, is actually on this arch line. So I'm going to start on my template, and I am going to merge onto the highway. And then I'm going to come down a little bit, and same thing. And then same thing on this last one. And then my very last one, I'm actually going to create a V. Okay, so that is my top strokes. Then my very first one's coming from my arch. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to fill in and my very last one that I do here is going to go directly over the top of the highway. Okay, see where I'm at there? Okay, so then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start on my bottoms right at my arch point again. So right here on my arch, I'm going to come up and I'm going to merge onto the highway. And I'm going to start on my template and I'm going to merge onto my highway. And then I'm going to probably fit one more right in here. It's going to tuck right into that V. Okay, so see how these are like deep V's? They're not like this, they're like this. Okay, all right, so now I finished my bottom strokes from my arch to my tail. Now I'm going to finish them up to where my highway is here. So I'm going to start here. Now these are all my skeleton strokes right now. So these strokes we're going to keep far apart. We're going to go back through and pretty these up more. But right now we're keeping them far apart. That way we can just see the basics of where we're at. Okay, so come up, round this over. One more through here. And then this last one is going to go right on the highway. This is going to be a transition stroke. I'm going to do that one again here real fast. Okay, so this one is my last one. This is my transition stroke right up. And see how then it kind of meets right up with that other one? Okay, so then I'm going to do the exact same thing on my other side. So I did all of this while sitting on the right side of my client. Boop, 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 all of that. Now I'm going to do the same thing over here. So we're going to start with our green. We're going to start right at where our arch line is. And we're going to pull that in. Start on our template. One more here, and then our very last one, we're going to go here and we're going to create our V. Okay, then I'm going to finish those strokes. The last one here is going to go right on that highway. Okay. Now I'm going to do my understrokes. I'm going to start on the arch, up and in, and in. One more there. And then I'm going to finish all of these. Now these ones, we want to make sure that we're not crash landing into here. So not like that, okay? We want to instead make these strokes nice and rounded and kind of tuck in and merge onto that highway. Okay, we're merging onto the highway. I'll do one more right in here. And then this last one is my transition stroke. I'll make this other one just a tiny bit longer here. Okay, so at this point, they should look about even with each other. And then I would switch my positioning and I would sit actually behind my client. And then I'm going to ask them, do you like to see your brows a little more square or do you like to see them a little more round? And let's say this client says, I'm not quite sure, I'm going to do somewhere in the middle. So we're going to go directly with kind of where our template is here on the paper. But if we had them mapped out, we would have them real square. So if they said they weren't sure, I typically go kind of in the middle of that. And so we would give it just a gentle curve. And that's what this is just kind of that gentle curve. So I always do my left one first. That way I can do my left one. And then when I move to my right one, I can still see my left one as I'm working. Okay, so we're going to do this side. So we're going to do one stroke here. Then we're going to go close together on the bottom, farther apart on the top, and round it out. You see how that is? It's close together up here, farther apart here. And we're going to continue to just keep rounding those until we fill in that space up to that transition stroke that we did. You see that? Okay, so we're going to do one here. Longer. Okay, so at this point, we would wipe everything off and we have our basic skeleton strokes, okay? So that's what we have here. We have kind of a template after our mapping. After we made that first pass, then we wiped everything off. Now we have our basic template. Now we need to go back through and pretty it up. So now I kind of change where I sit. So I might go over here to my left side and I'm going to go back in. Now, our strokes can never cross each other. However, they always should meet each other. It's okay to have shorter strokes in between these longer ones, so long as they meet up with another one. So some areas that I see here where I need some. Here on this tail, I'm going to add one through here. I'm going to add one through here and see how I'm getting on the highway again. Merging all of these into the highway. You can do shorter ones in between so long as they also meet onto the highway. See how I did some shorter ones through there, but they all met up together, okay? Everyone seems to always like more density across the bottom. This is true whether we're doing shading, whether we're doing microblading, doesn't matter exactly what it is. But more density across the bottom, typically they want that to be a fuller line, a more defined line. So we're going to add in more strokes to be able to make that happen. But we're going to keep the top side still less dense. So with this part in here, we're going to add some, but we're not going to make it nearly as dense as we do the bottom side. Okay, and then when we're talking about our fronts here, what we may end up doing, so I do feel like I want one here. But then with some of these, I may decide actually that I want to keep just the single on the top, but I want it thicker at the bottom, which means then I may come up here and join it up with another one. Okay. So now you can see the difference between those two. So I have it all prettied up and filled in. This is just my skeleton strokes there. So typically with students, a lot of times I'll make some of these first skeleton strokes for them on their clients so that they can see where they're supposed to go. And then I have them go back through and fill in all of these so that they feel more comfortable with their very first person that they do. And this gives it where you have that template so that after you do all that pretty mapping and you wipe everything away, that it's not all gone. That way I can help you out with that part. So whether you're doing nano brows, whether you're doing microbladed brows, this is the basic pattern that you're going to be following. Okay, so now we're going to be doing the same exact thing, only we're going to be actually microblading it. So it's the same exact pattern as we did here. We're just going to be now doing it actually microblading. So I'm going to go through these. I don't know why a lot of times on these skins they make the brows so dang skinny, but we're just going to roll with it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create that highway for us. Now we want to make sure that we have enough space through the arch, and since they are a little skinny, we want to make sure that like this is about as far back as we go with that highway. We don't want to make it too far back. Remember, this is going to be kind of where our arch point is. So we're going to do that same thing kind of on both sides. And on a client, you can go ahead and draw this in as well. It's going to make things a lot easier when you're first starting to actually have this drawn out for you. Okay. All right, so there's our basic little highway. All right, so again, on my client, I am going to start on her right side. So just as I did on this guy, now I'm going to be working on my right side here. So the very first thing I do is going to be starting on the arch point. Okay. With these, we want them to always be moving across the skin, not jabbing into the skin. Okay, so we're moving across the top of the skin. So I will hold it a lot of times like this and pull away from me. That's how I'm comfortable. If you have more of a slanted one, you may be pulling like this with it. It's okay either way. We just want to make sure that however you're doing it, it's gliding on the skin, not going the opposite direction on the skin, okay? So we're going to start here, and I'm going to start on my arch point and pull it down, okay? And then this one, same thing, and one more. And then my last one, I'm going to create that V on my end, okay? All right, so then I'm going to finish my top strokes here. And my last one is going to go right on my highway. You see that? Okay, now I'm going to turn and I'm going to go on the bottom, starting from the arch, merging onto the highway. See that? Okay, and then maybe one more. Really only had room for 2 in there. Most of the time on a client, you're going to have a little bit more room. Might do a couple more. Okay, then I'm going to finish my bottom strokes up to my highway. So I'm going to start on my template and then get on the highway. Okay, start on the template, get on the highway. On the template, get on the highway. Okay. And then my last one is going to be that transition stroke. That's going to go right up to there. Do you see that, how that one went from here to here? And that was exactly where my highway started, where that orange was, where the highway was. Okay? Right, so that's where I'm at on this side. So now I'm going to move over to this side. I'm going to do the exact same thing. So I'm going to start at my arch point. And this one, I'm actually pulling towards me with this, okay? Just a little easier on a human, but We'll just roll with this. Okay, so we're going to start on our template and we're going to pull it down to the highway. Start on our template to the highway. On our template to the highway, and then our very last one, we're creating that V on the end. Okay, now we're going to finish our top strokes. So that one, and our last one is on the highway. Okay, now we're going to start on the underside, and we're going to go from the underside of the arch, one there, and then we're going to do the rest of these underside strokes on our template, merge onto the highway. These are deep V's, remember? Deep V's. They're not like close together. They're deep V's. Okay, so there on our template, get on the highway. On our template, get on the highway. On our template, get on the highway. And then our last one here, actually I'm going to do one more, get on the highway. And then our last one is that transition stroke. So it goes from here, ends there where the highway starts. Okay, so now this is what I have. So this should look pretty close to this one here. It's the skeleton strokes. Okay, all right, so now we're going to do our left one first. This particular client said, I like my brows pretty square. So what we're going to do is we're going to create more of that square look in the front. Always going to give it a little bit of a curve, but pretty straight. Then our next one, we're going to go farther back, closer to that top. Same thing there. Okay. See how that looks? Now we're going to come to this side and we're going to do exactly the same. So we did our left first so that we could look at it while we did our right. Okay, so we started directly on this dot and then we came just to the inside of the top dot. Okay. All right. So we are pretty close there. So both of them look pretty even with each other, right? Got our skeleton strokes pretty even. Now we're going to go through and make them pretty. So a lot of times then I'll go and I'll sit on the left side of my client over here and I'll come through and I'm always 3-point stretching. So these fingers are going to be holding and then with my pinky I'm going to be holding because we want it to feel on a client the way that it does on this skin, nice and flat. And then I'm going to do just a couple little pretty ones here in the very front. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I may come to the other side of my client and anywhere where I see space where we feel like we need to add some. And again, we always want a bit more density across that bottom side, more so than the top. I do use a U blade, which makes it me able to switch directions with how I'm going. If you are using one that is already angled, you're going to have to go with the angle of it, which means you're always going to be maybe pulling towards you or always maybe pushing away from you. When I seeing that I use a U blade that is a straight one like this, where it comes out of the actual thing straight, that means that I can switch which direction I want to go. And yes, lots of people say, you go from the top down? Yes, I do, because I understand my pressure has to be softer as I start, and then I can increase it, which still tapers just the way I want to. But with microblading, like a big part of it is being able to get those crisp lines. So whether you're going towards you or away, you're going to be making sure that you always have it nice and crisp. Okay, and then I'm going to do kind of these same little fun ones in the front of this guy. There we go. All right. So there are my completed brows. Alrighty.